Yo, what is up, beings of the multiverse? Good morning, afternoon, evening, all of it, foes, lovers, all sides of the galaxy and the multiverse union. Welcome to the Vibe Union podcast. This is episode 6. Today we're joined by, we've got familiar faces and slightly new faces for people who are only accessing us through the podcast. We've got one of the OG familiar faces. We've got Casey, aka Mikado. Think about that avocado and smash it. No, don't smash it.
Howdy, y'all.
Hey.
What's poppin'?
Good to see, good to be again. And also we're joined by, for the first time, Mariam, aka Marrow Cane. Think about that candy cane, that sweetness, that Christmas. How are we doing? Welcome to the Vibe Union podcast.
Hi. So happy to be here.
It's good. It looks like you're bringing the sun. You're bringing the sunset. You're bringing a sponsored refreshment drink as well.
I'm an ad straight out of Mount Franklin Lightly Sparkling this evening. We've got the sunset in Melbourne. You would think we were in a island, but no, it's the Docklands, Melbourne.
Docklands, Melbourne.
And you would think that I was somewhere where people wouldn't walk in while I was recording a podcast, but you'd be sorely mistaken. Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry about that, everyone.
You look like you're on the on set. You look like you're on a film set. You know, there's some creative lighting going on. Tis well lit, but you know, it's intriguing as well.
It's all bullshit, everyone. That's the message.
Right. So there's no underlying feel about what mood it's meant to represent. It's just like, nah, they're there.
It actually represents yin and yang, you know, opposites. You know, you have cool and warm. You have like, I don't know if I could make something up, artistic, blah, blah, blah.
You said it.
Meaningful, insert it here. Boom. That's
Balance
what we're
is
here
key
to do,
until
kids.
it's not.
You fill in the blanks.
I will fill in those blanks. Anyway, it's your MC, Dilly Dave out here. Rye and I have kind of, we're in a bit of competition. Only one can be MC or host at a time. So we're taking turns, and over a period of weeks, we'll see whoever performs the best. And the person who doesn't perform the best is probably just going to get cut from this podcast. So just a heads up.
Like Survivor style.
So what's on the line? So in terms of housekeeping, I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional custodians of this land that we were recording on. I'd also like to pay respects to the elders, both past, present, current, emerging, evolving, all of it. Also remember to subscribe to this podcast. This is the 6th episode. We haven't made 20. We haven't made 50. So, you know, it's not a sure thing until you hit 50, I think. But you got to help us on this mission, this journey to 50, to infinity and beyond, as Buzz would say.
And beyond. Sorry.
Thank you. No, I mean, that's what we want. But you're you're on the soundboard, but it's just your vox just is on it. So, bam.
I fully feel like I'm the mouthpiece of literally no one, like a Martian or some shit. Like I'm just saying stuff. And if it makes sense, great. If it makes you laugh, awesome. If not, who cares? Who cares? It's all relative.
It's certainly all relative. It's all relevant. That was a potent line, I think you said, though. I'm the mouthpiece to nothing, to no one. Is that what you said?
Exactly. Basically. I'm dropping mad truth bombs today. I'm feeling mad advisory. I'm feeling my Stregga roots today. If you don't know what Stregga is, it's basically the Italian ways of witchcraft. Look it up. It's very cool. I did some tarot readings for my friend and I, and they were spookily accurate. So all I'm going to say is that I am feeling my witchy self today. Let's get real. Let's get fucking philosophical.
Let's get magic.
Love that.
There's only way to be.
It's actually a full moon right now, so this is very, very on point that you would be in tune with this witchy side. This is going to be a spellbinding session, I think.
Hey.
Of course. I mean, over the October 31st to November 1st period, we celebrate Beltane in the Southern Hemisphere instead of Samhain like they do up in the Northern. But yeah, very cool that there was a northern moon, a full moon timed with the spring equinox and everything. So basically that means that spring is the strongest right now. So it's very cool. Everyone get outside, enjoy nature.
Yeah. Pop that sun.
And Halloween as well, which is kind of creepy.
Right.
Love that. Spooky Maluki. Check out episode 5.
having our first COVID Halloween down in Australia. It was a sight for sore eyes. I'll tell you that much. What I saw out in the streets. Couple
Incredible.
of lost kids.
Everyone went as a surgeon this year. It was quite unoriginal.
Very apt. Poignant.
So funny. What's the what's
the 411?
What's the Marvel character? Not Marvel, DC character. You know, kind of companion of the Joker. What's her name again?
Harley Quinn.
Everyone was dressed like either Doctor Surgeon or Harley Quinn. That was like
everyone's always Harley Quinn though, because they love that fucked up fantasy of having like a overprotective boyfriend who's like a psychopath, and like, you know, people go into the Mr. J like put in fucking bullshit, like, you know, they love that. They love that whole idea of like, you know, me against the world, Bonnie and Clyde. Everyone loves that they're the exception to the rule. They're this like, you know, the special two, and the reality is that we're all just trying to fucking figure it out. But if y'all are having some kinky sex and like putting your shit in pigtails, then go on.
Go get it.
Also,
go get it.
This is definitely not a PG podcast, thanks to me. I tend to do that. Mad apologies, everyone.
We're doing so well up until then as well. And we're really trying to like get more families on board. So
yeah, absolutely.
I feel like families aren't coming to the Halloween hip hop lyrical like podcast today.
Yeah, that's true. Not so family friendly, potentially a bit dense for some people as well. You know, not so accessible for everyone. We do our best, but you're right. Not quite our demographic. We are our demographic, right?
Yeah,
people. We are a part of the Rhythm Nation. Janet said that. She meant it.
Powerful. So, some might ask, what brought you to this podcast on this day at this time? And a simple evaluation for me would be maybe some kind of gravitational pull from combination of lyricism and meaning. I think that's what summoned both of you here today, aside from Discord and being up and on social media and whatnot.
It's a great summary.
Killing it.
I guess we've both been like touched by hip hop. And gravitational pull is probably the right way to put it, because hip hop is like a really emotional art form. It's very poetic, so it's easy to gravitate towards it if you do want to express something that's a little bit darker than usual, or if you've gone through something. It's a really nice mechanism to express yourself without the normal constraints of life, without the normal rules. So that was why I was. Yeah. You can really talk about taboo subjects. You can say politically incorrect things. You can be cheeky. I mean, when I think about hip hop, I think about diss tracks and intellectually annihilating people. That was kind of the origins of it at the early stages in the 90s.
Totally.
And then there's like full-on diary entries, and there's not many rules that limit the way you can express yourself in hip-hop.
Yeah, I mean, sure, it has its roots, but now it has its avenues, you know, all the different paths. You only have to, you know, travel 15, 20 Ks around Melbourne to kind of know the diversity and the different stories, the different ways of approaches, angles, flavors, tones, sounds, cadences, influences, all of it. It's wild. Was that one of the most drawing or enticing features of hip hop for you, Mariam? Was the combination of free form of expression and kind of like taking away the boundaries of how you carry yourself or express yourself?
For sure. And I think when I first started to get into hip hop, I was, you know, really young teenager, probably 12 or 13 when I started to listen to hip hop. And at that time, it was like D12, Wu-Tang.
The groups, so really, the crews.
Yeah, really grimy, hardcore sort of lyrics. And I remember feeling like a rebel in high school. I wanted to sort of talk a lot out of you know, I had this like rebellious thoughts. And then when I heard people like Eminem just like expressing themselves, in this really outrageous way, but also rhyming it and coming up with metaphors, even if they were like crude and rude. I was like intellectually impressed by that, but I loved the freedom. I was like, I want to be able to express myself in that way.
Yeah.
Even though it was like fucked up.
Yeah, it's weird. I guess, you know, it's similar experience to kids who would like, you know, metal or hardcore or rock for a certain reason to kind of feel what they normally can't express. And that was like almost where I came from before hip hop. For me, the thing that really impressed me about hip hop was like the complexity and the meaning, and it was interesting, like a braggadocious song and a storytelling song can still get you on the same level. And I think that was really cool. And hip hop's interesting, I think, because you don't have rock bands kind of like doing songs about each other or tracks about each other, or like kind of big, like not really, like it doesn't seem to be part of the thing. But in hip hop, it's like this internal conversation that's like bouncing back and forth around everywhere. And I think
it's really like dialogue driven. Like as a medium, yeah.
Like there's actually these characters that get pushed through this, like these narratives and stuff. Yeah, I think you're right, Casey.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know, that whole back and forth and the idea, you know, especially in hip hop, you see like so much collaboration, and it's really like evident in, you know, the kind of art that we consume and the kind of music that we consume. And like, you know, everyone froths a collab because it's so cool to get to see, you know, multiple artists that you enjoy across like maybe slightly different genres do something that unifies all those sounds in a way that is meaningful and that resonates with people. And like, oh man, I live for stuff like that. That is like what gets me up in the morning. So I mean, you know, in terms of like where I come from and what I like to listen to, like, yeah, like Mariam, I've been listening to hip hop and R&B and like all types of Motown, soul, funk, reggae, everything that you can think of, like literally from the feeders. So, you know, I think I have my dad to thank for a lot of that. A lot of people, you know, credit my music taste. And
that's lucky to have your family involved.
It's really cool. Like I have to say, he was pretty much like he introduced me to all these cool sounds and a lot of things that, you know, I didn't necessarily pick up even until recently. A lot of sounds, a lot of songs that, you know, it didn't have meaning for me before, but through lived experience, through time, they now carry meaning for me. They now resonate with me in a way that they didn't before because I now know a little bit more. I can relate to that. I think, you know, the powerful part of lyrics is the ability to be able to relate to someone. And that's why I'm a massive advocate for having as many voices in hip hop as possible, because, you know, everyone deserves to be heard. Everyone deserves to have their story told. And, you know, especially with what you guys were both saying, when you don't have the words to convey, you don't have the words to express all the time. It's really important to have, you know, a voice, a mouth, a talking box. I don't know what I'm trying to say. A fucking mouthpiece.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. A mouthpiece to your thoughts, to your inner dialogue, because I think, you know, that can be really the turning point for someone having, if in life, I think there are a few things that we share. I mean, there are a lot of things that we share universally, but there are a few things that we share, like, you know, in terms of telling people. And so, you know, having such a personal medium like hip hop, like music, it's really important to have those stories be told and to be able to express yourself like a catharsis, the way that Mariam was saying.
Yeah. So, that's so well put. I think it's lucky that there are all those different stories because, you know, you could say that there's the one overarching story of humanity or blah, blah, whatever. But yeah, we've all got individual stories that is like, if we finally tune into somebody else's story that like really resonates, I mean, they're generally the artists that we like, you know, whether it's the same, it can be like just, as long as you find a couple links or connections, you can just like pour your own meaning and experience over it. It's wild.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's this level of, well, I was going to say there's this level of authenticity that you just pick up on. It doesn't matter who it comes from. It's just, that's what's really good,
isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, authenticity, I think, is ultimately the draw to hip hop. And I think, you know, there's no expectancy, at least as heavily as I can recall, in any other music genre, to have your music be authentic and written by you and to tell your own stories as hip hop is. I mean, you know, there's an expectancy that you are telling the stories that you are expressing and you are performing, like, you know, and people take it, I mean, especially, you know, people used to call other people biters if they weren't like telling their own stories and things like that. There was a real like hate for doing things that weren't your own and that were unoriginal. And I mean, I think now that hip hop has both diversified and kind of, I don't want to say saturated, but there's a lot of people trying their hand at. Well, yeah, I think there's a certain saturation in certain sounds of hip hop, especially like
consumer
trap.
side. Yeah.
Totally. And I think, you know, especially trap is kind of dominating the hip hop sound at the moment. But I mean, of course, to me, hip hop, the beautiful thing about hip hop is that it means different things to different people. It could mean old school hip hop. Right. It could mean, you know, millennium hip hop. It could mean 90s hip hop. It could mean, you know, 80s like breakdance hip hop. It could really mean a multitude of different things. And so, you know, when people say hip hop today, I really don't have like a proper answer, a distinct answer to give to them because it's so diverse.
The tail on the hip hop donkey.
Exactly, but people coming in cold have like a certain perspective or understanding of what they think hip hop to be. So that's where it's hard as an artist to kind of break down their stigmas and their little biases that they have, to give them a more broad understanding. Like, no, hip hop is not one dimensional. It is actually a multitude of sounds and a multitude of experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do you think when it comes to some of the, sorry, you got something to go for it?
No, go on. I had a thought, but it'll come back.
I was going to like change I was going to throw in a question. So if you want to add on, go for it.
Oh, well, I was just, what Casey was just saying reminded me of so Immortal Technique has this album, it's called Revolutionary 1 and 2, and he weaves through discussions with political dissidents. And there's this one sample track, and it says that hip hop is, I don't know who says it, but someone says hip hop is the natural ally of the oppressed. And I think that's kind of what it's been thematically, you know, from its origins,
for
whichever
decades.
generation, whichever generation you're talking about, it's a discussion about what's happening and who's being oppressed and how they can overcome that, whether it's through mockery or whether it's about racism or female rights, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's a language that you can speak when you feel oppressed, and I think that's often what you resonate with. So yeah, more recently it's kind of it's transitioned a lot to this trap stuff, and people kind of have mixed feelings about it. And I don't know if it's still keeping true to that, but there's still space. Then again, a lot of the trap music does delve into, you know, feelings of anxiety and depression, which again is another form of oppression.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, I think that's a great point, because society culture does kind of like give people mental oppression, because it does create these invisible barriers that we have to operate within. And most people, unless, you know, I guess super upper class, but every class, you know, will have some kind of mental barrier or oppression. So that's why things like anxiety and depression, and talk about those mental illnesses, which I guess like everyone experiences on some level. But that's just relatable, universal content, especially here in the West.
What was your question, Dilly?
My question was, like, when it comes to, because currently hip hop is the biggest genre in music, in the music industry, and it seems like it's been very present since 90s. Are we talking late 80s, 90s was when it was kicking in super strong? I guess, you know, top 3 or, you know, big contender. So when it comes to, so obviously it's quite an influential genre, as all music is obviously influential. But when it comes to some of the biggest names for you two, do you have any one that comes to mind as like, this was the rapper that like sparked all of this other stuff, this outshoot, or like really stood out? Mikado, if you want to flow first.
Oh no, I was actually going to open it up to Mariam first.
Oh,
if
cool,
she wanted to go.
Great.
Yeah, oh, look, to narrow it down would be hard, but I have to say, I'll give you 3 names that probably really just, I always go back to them when I need inspiration. Probably Eminem. Eminem is one.
Why? Let's break him down one by one.
Eminem, because of his wittiness and his ability to take the piss, his incredible rhythm and storytelling, his imagination.
And are you talking about influence and impact on you, or the audience, the people, the general public?
On me in particular, how I
cool.
felt. I think I was 12 or 13, and I heard that and I was like, wow, like I want to tell a story like that. That was like, and how I felt. And then I think also that my generation, like through high school, we would listen to that, and it was just so rebellious and so
it unlocked
creative.
The rebel in you. Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of, and that was a movement, I think, maybe in the early 2000s, mid 2000s.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't want to assume your age or anything, but, give or take a little bit from 30 or 26.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm 33, So like, that for me, that was like a real generational change in music. But of course, there's a huge plethora of like hip hop. I mean, he was with like sort of Dr. Dre and Snoop, and which had evolved from Death Row and Tupac. So he comes like mid chapter of the peak of hip hop, not necessarily. There's a lot of forefathers there.
That was like a strong branch that he came out of, right?
Yeah. And I think the sound of hip hop then was really the sound of Dr. Dre. When you think about what really made him incredible, I think, was that he teamed up with Dr. Dre at the time and had, I think it might have been, I can't remember the album, it might have been The Real Slim Shady, I don't know, but that was the sound that kind of was in the clubs at the time.
Right.
And then I think the second like rapper that I can't look past is probably J. Cole.
Right. For like this current generation?
His current generation, but even his early stuff, probably about 10 years ago, I think he had a breakthrough album. I always love rappers at their initial raw stage.
It's funny that, isn't it? It's funny how it's also similar with rock bands, I guess, in a little way. Anyway, who knows? It's a funny thing. It's a world within its own, that discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because, like, by the time they catch on to the mainstream, they've maybe moved away from that rawness. But when they're really in, like, at the early stages, their stories are so relatable. The sound is really raw, and you can just feel it's like this authentic, original breakout.
Right.
But I mean, all of his stuff. Yeah. But all of his stuff, I think, lyrically is just on a different level with the metaphors, the bars. Like when J. Cole says something, he'll say something directly, but then he'll say something indirectly simultaneously, and you kind of click afterwards. You're like, oh, you meant this.
Right.
And I think that to me, that's like a really skillful rapper, when you can rhyme and you can say something and then you can imply something, and in a backhanded way. There's just layers to that.
Yeah, that's complex writing. I mean, that's real poetry. That's real writing. To be able to draw double meaning and layers on things is wild. And yeah, definitely why I love hip hop, because I mean, you guess, yeah, it's just something about bars that have like meaning, and like everyone just hits you as like a punch, and some of them are softer and harder than the others, but the combo is calm, and God, it's a mind melter.
Exactly. It's such a pleasurable experience, and like it's so that you can really appreciate the intelligence, the rhythm, the structure, the story. And I think that's an underrated skill in hip hop. There's only a few masters of that everyone's got their taste, but where I can really say, this person's a fucking genius. It's they're telling a story about it's so skillful.
Cool. So was there a third? What's the third?
Third one's probably Immortal Technique, and he's like a real underground rapper.
Yeah.
He's really skillful as a lyricist, but also just because of the truth bombs that he drops. And yeah, he, in a similar way, he's got that shock value. And I'd say he influenced me a lot, probably 5 to 10 years ago, when that's probably what prompted me to start writing. Actually, I was impressed at how he kind of brought conscious rap into skillful bars, I guess, because sometimes conscious rap doesn't sound that good. And he managed to say really like forward truth bomb conscious things but still had amazing bars, amazing flow. So, and storytelling.
when it's all packaged nicely, that kind of, I guess that's a tough part because, you know, everyone's kind of got something to say, and I guess kind of everyone's got the right idea in some way. You know, everyone's got good ideas and stuff, but to be able to have it really accessible or really polished or well packaged or whatever it is, you know, in amongst the other bars, like, because to hold people's attention is super hard.
For sure. And to say something meaningful and in like a tongue-in-cheek way as well, where you don't, you know, it's not a sledgehammer way. It's almost like you allow the audience to come to a conclusion. That's like in a suggestive way. That is so skillful, I think.
Right. Because nobody wants to be told what to do. Right.
No.
But if they figure it out, you know, then oof, it's theirs.
So they're my top 3.
Cool. That's great. Talk to us, Mikado. What you got to show?
I've got a few. Some really cool picks there. I'm very like female oriented in terms of like my favorites. Like, I mean, number one unequivocally for me has to be Queen Latifah. She's been like influential to me in ways like I can only begin to explain. But, you know, my whole thing with Queen Latifah is that she, to me, commands a level of respect in her art and in the way that she presents herself and in the way that she presents her work that, you know, to me is unheard of. And, you know, you don't see very much of that, especially in hip hop, you know, having a woman command that level of respect. You know, no one has a bad word to say about Queen Latifah. She's a saint, like, and that's kind of what I aspire to be. You know, I have a lot to say and a voice in which I fully intend to convey it. So, you know, especially my personal favorite song of hers is UNITY or Unity. The first line in that song is "Who you calling a bitch?" And for me, I've said it before on the podcast as well, but I feel quite strongly about using the word bitch in hip hop. And, you know, I don't mean this to censor anyone or anything like that. You know, I don't really care if it's not like, if it's just like a bitch, whatever. Like, I don't care if it's not pointed at anyone, but the second that it has an intent that goes beyond, you know, frivolous cussing or whatever you want to call it, that's when I tend to have an issue, when it becomes, you know, about negative behaviors that you see in a woman rather than a reflection of her behavior. So, you know, things like that, you know, being able to say, even just in life without like the context of hip hop, about being called a bitch and being referred to as a bitch instead of, you know, being referred to on your merit or anything like that. There's a different level of respect that women have to try and attain to, like a godlike, revered level of respect to gain any at all. I feel sometimes, I mean, I don't know if Mary Kane can attest to this.
Infallible I think is the word.
100%. Like you really have to be untouchable. Like you have to have the attitude of being the best in the room and not necessarily having an ego of that, but always aspiring to be as strong as you possibly can, to have your work at a point where at your current level, your current skill set, your current, you know, talents are apt enough and they reflect what you can do. I think as long as you present that and you present your strongest work, I think you can't go wrong. But, you know, I digress a little bit. I mean, my attachment to Queen Latifah is really strong. And I just, well, I think as well, like she's a plus size. Well, she was, at least, you know, in that era, like, you know, a plus size woman making music. She was a woman of color, and she was talking about how she doesn't want to see her children potentially getting beat down by her partner because she doesn't respect herself enough. She doesn't love herself enough to walk away from a situation that is potentially difficult. And, you know, I really respect women who tell brutally honest stories and like kind of engage in shock value, but in a way that rivals, if not supersedes, male talent at times. And that's what I live for. So, I mean, you know, she's my number one. Lil Kim, MC Lyte particularly, is another favorite of mine. Like Poor Georgie is probably one of my favorite songs. I like it because she tells like pretty much perfectly from start to finish. You never lose her. The story about how she falls in love with someone and how he doesn't take care of himself, and then he finds out he has cancer, and then, you know, he tries to drink himself dead, and then he ends up crashing into a into something and dying in a car accident instead of like, you know, of cancer. So, you know, it talks about how no one is promised tomorrow, but the way that she speaks of it is it's so fluid, it's so organic. And I think that's the real draw for artists, for me personally, and the artists that I favor and I try to emulate is speaking in a way that is impactful and in a way that speaks 100% to the experience that you have had. Because if you speak power, from right? What you know.
Speaking exactly. Truth to power, yeah.
Exactly. And speaking your truth can be so powerful and so freeing and so cathartic. And when that hits somebody and when, like, because for me, whenever I'm feeling pissed about a guy or if I'm facing some sexist bullshit or something like that, Unity is the song that I put on because that always resets me. It recharges me. It puts my mind in the right space to be like, you know what? This woman is Queen Latifah. She's no Latifah. She is Queen Latifah. And she is telling us this story. And she is conveying in a way that moves me. And that's what I personally fuck with. I mean, like, you know, if we're talking about cheekier rappers and ones that, you know, bring the party, bring the noise, bring the funk, you know, Left Eye Lopez from TLC, she's one of my favorite rappers because her flow, it's kind of like that West Coast sound, you know, a little bit Snoop Dogg, Lady of Rage kind of vibe. But yeah, exactly. But especially Kick Your Game is one I will recommend listening to. That one has got like the fattest beat. It is so stanky. And basically it is fully stanky, but like she's talking about how well, this guy like rolls up to her in the club and he's just like, hey, you haven't called me. He's like, you know, I called you twice. And she's like, you called me once. Like, you know, just fully being like that back and forth banter. Like, you know, if you want me, you could come and get me, but I'm not like desperate for it or anything like that. You know, not that whole like stereotypical, like I'm a strong woman, don't need no man bullshit. But I will say TLC for me really pioneered like a language of I am okay. Yes, I am a woman, but that doesn't define me and it doesn't define how you can treat me. And, you know, I really respect that. And that's really the kind of music, I feel bad. I'm not trying to like change the world or anything like that. But I mean, you know, those kinds of things. Yes, I'm very like soul driven. I got the fire in my belly. It's true. Yeah. It's true. But that's what I'm driven by and I can't help it. That's me, the Mikado.
That's the Mikado. Yeah, beautiful. I mean, it's more than the green filling around the seed that means anything, you know?
Absolutely.
Anyway.
All right, it's sponsor time, baby.
Oh, hi there. Didn't see y'all. My name's Desiree, and whilst my life can be a mother trucking mess, yours doesn't have to be. With Femergy. Ever since I started chugging this little miracle drink right here, I've had more energy than a Dalmatian puppy with its nose caught in my dresser drawer stash, okay? Or anybody's stash. My point is that you're busy. You're tired. And a bottle of wine and huffing scented candles only gets you through about a half a day now instead of the full one, right? Well, not to worry, because the innovators at Femergy have taken care of all that. One can of this and I am chewing at my 3-year-old's little toes at 2 in the morning. Now don't stress, y'all. You still have some left, okay? For when there aren't enough hours in the day, try Femergy. And for the gal on the go, try Femergy Light. Now with only 2% cocaine.
You really captured the divine feminine energy there with those influences. And I feel like it's a good chance to shout out Lauryn Hill as well.
Of course, Queen.
Her album, like Miseducation of, what was it? What is it? The Miseducation
of Lauryn Hill.
Yeah, that was a massive influence on me. And again, she managed, and just like Queen Latifah, they managed to like really embody their feminine energy without selling their soul, so to speak. And, you know, they don't apologize for being women and their craft is incredible. And, they really do match their male counterparts or surpass them or supersede them is probably the better word. But
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
But keeping the feminine energy, and that's really hard to do sometimes because hip-hop does feel quite masculine. It's got a militant vibe almost sometimes. And then when you have a woman that comes in and
it's militant and explicit.
True.
It is, and women can be that. We can be militant and explicit, but when you can do it in your own feminine energy without sort of compromising who you are. It's really beautiful for other women to see and be inspired by.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I was just gonna say, like, that's a really beautiful sentiment, and I think one that I really try to echo. I really love that, especially the idea of hip hop being militant at times and being like, you know, the flower like emerging from the desert, so to speak. Like it's hard to maintain femininity and sensuality in a way that doesn't echo, like, for example, you know, your Cardi B, Nicki Minaj types, as we've discussed before. So I think it's fully empowering to be able to see someone be in their element and be truly themselves, but also, you know, be able to get down with the boys and like flow in a way that commands respect. Like Lauryn Hill, I mean, I should have fully had that on there, but forgive them, Father, is actually been like on my rotation again lately. It's like, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And then she goes into this into her flow, and it's just, she inspires me because she was the first artist that I saw, well, not the first artist that I saw, but the first one that really resonated with me that sung and rapped, and I was like, oh shit, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could do this.
Yeah, she did not limit herself. Amazing voice, amazing musically, and then would just spit out a verse that like with amazing flow and like always out.
A wordplay on point, like insanity. Yeah.
Like just, and she did it all, and like, and she's also had this humble energy about her too. So even though she's an incredibly beautiful woman, she didn't rely on her sexuality. She relied on her intellect. So that was a message I always took with me from her music, that you can be attractive as much as you want, but you feel so good when you can intellectually rise as much as you can.
And I don't know if your talent speak as well. Yeah. Like you can. Just let your merit stand on their own. Sorry, go on.
Exactly, yeah. I got to see her live, I think, last year.
Me too. I went to that gig. I have the T-shirt like on my bed.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and Nas was there as well. Were you there when Nas was there?
Yep, I have the videos.
Oh, my God. Nas deserves a shout-out too, actually.
Nas was so good. Yeah. Nas was real good.
Lyrically. So, and she's such an inspiration. She just is a raw talent and, doesn't need to do anything except stand on stage and be, and it's just enough. So cool.
Powerful. Do you think some of those artists that influences you, were they similar influences on your friends, or do you feel like you had a bit of different music taste to your friend group at the time coming through school and when you were kind of getting into hip-hop?
I mean, for me personally, I've always been pretty like individual in my taste. Like not until I left school and I found hip hop people really share like my taste in music, but less like a couple of people. So for me, hip hop and R&B and everything has been like ultimately a really personal thing and a really personal journey, and will always be. And I mean, the songs I continue to show people will always like, you know, people are like, oh, this is actually really cool. They get really surprised it's like a hip hop track or something like that. But you know, for me, it definitely didn't echo the sentiments of anyone outside of my family and my immediate family and things like that. But and experiences shared. But yeah, like in terms of my friend group and things like that, it wasn't until I left school and I found, you know, like my Branches crew and Vibe Union and people like that, people who are like-minded to me, that hip hop became about joint experience and became about union and celebration. And also continuing like that really personal journey and finding artists and seeking out artists that speak to me on a personal level and that I really resonate with. So that's been super important for me lately. But yeah, I'm not sure about Mary Kane though.
Hey.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, I've had a couple of, one of my best friends loved hip hop. So that was cool. We always bonded over that together. And she actually used to rap with me, and we'd have these like little rap sessions all throughout teenage life. So,
what was her name?
Yeah, Safi. So I mean, she's not really rapping like now as much, although like she still does come over and we freestyle together. We put on like a random SoundCloud beat and just like go. So I had that, and that was really cool because I think you need creative friends to just hype you up and to give you that strength. when you want to rap on a track.
100%, yeah.
I had that all through my teenage years, and then, but other than that, like if I'd say like my mainstream girl gang, they were not into hip hop, especially underground hip hop, and so it was kind of like a different world. Like if we went out together, we wouldn't be going to hip hop clubs or anything. It was sort of my little secret side.
Interesting.
But but I had lots of like actually a few guy mates that we'd exchange like cool underground tracks. But yeah, it is a personal thing. Like when you're really getting into a track, you've got your headphones on, you might be on the train, you might be in your car, like blasting it up, and you're having a moment with the music. So I feel like you don't really need your friends to be vibing with it, like, because it's what you're going through at the time, I think. But it's cool when you're being creative to have your mates around, as in a good crew.
Yeah, I think by the same token, like sometimes I regret not having not regret, but I just sometimes wish I had, sisters in the rap game that I could talk to and that I could jam with and vibe with, and there've been instances. I know now I do exactly, but it's not. There's no real sisterhood in hip hop, and that's something that I really would love to change. And just like a network and a community of women that can also like coexist in the space and understand that we're not here to take anything over. We're just here to talk. We're here to share our experiences, but also we're here to get down with the boys and say what we got to say. And like maybe if you have to step to me and say something, maybe I might beat you in a fucking freestyle rap, but maybe I don't know. I mean,
I'm pretty good at freestyle, but I think all of us are pretty good at freestyle. It would be interesting. I don't want to poke no ant holes though, I'm not down for that. I want you to kind of explore. I know we've like talked about females in the rap game, blah, blah, blah before. Of course. But like, you say you wish you had some sisters in the game, and it looks like you nodded as well, Mariam. Well, have you seen any evidence of like groups or collectives or people kind of like trying that out in Melbourne?
Not female rap girls, no, but like admittedly Vibe Union's been amazing like that. Like I've met Amutha and we caught up and we collabed.
Yeah.
And so you guys are actually been really instrumental in that, creating a safe space so that we can meet like each other. Like now I've connected hopefully with Mikado. So, like that's kind of the beginning. But I don't know what it is about the rap world. Like I feel like, it should be natural for this sisterhood to just find each other. But
it's a bit tricky.
Maybe it's just a bit new.
Right. I feel like I've seen tiny bits of it.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been, around and observing and participating in the scene for 4 or 5 years. Like, I'm not sure if it's just a numbers things, because guys can be like super dicks and just cold to each other and just like not even bother with each other. But it does seem easier to find, when you're talking about friends, like creative friends to like either freestyle with, or kind of like, they give you permission, like we're giving each other permission to just be you, because other's some person's not going to want to have a bar of it. So yeah.
A bar of it.
That was good. I didn't even, it's so subconscious for me. It's
ingrained.
It's ingrained. Yeah. So it's interesting. I don't know if it's just a numbers thing, because it's like the nature of hip hop seems to be like almost a contradiction between like the community and the individual and the interplay between that, but it can't operate without the people because it's so dialogue driven that it relies on that. And for me, I felt like I got, very support. I was so lucky in terms of finding the right people, creative people that were just super encouraging. I learned so much from so many people, obviously forever learning, but yeah, if that wasn't there and all these like friendly people weren't there for me, I would have been like, no, fuck this. It's probably not worth it. Yeah. Maybe I'll just enjoy the music.
It's hard, like, especially because I was literally just telling my friend about this today, like, especially when you're starting out and you're busy, as most creatives often are, like, it's really difficult to engage with creativity with the looming threat of success or failure. And, you know, having a collective kind of removes some of that pressure, and, you know, the train's moving whether you're on it or not, and you can kind of not choose, but you have more control over when you step on and off. And the important part is about, you know, not being discouraged and being able to find people who motivate you and help hold you accountable and help to encourage the best out of you. And I think that's where a lot of people like try and enter the scene and like might potentially fizzle out, or, you know, for example, they might get overwhelmed, or it can be quite confronting to walk into such a ego-driven culture as hip hop can be at times.
Yeah, people are running hot in those rooms. I've gone to so many, you know, I started going to Can I Kick It and like Or You Can Spit, those freestyle nights, you know, a few years ago. It's so like intimidating. It's only not 100%. Intimidating after you've been there a few times.
And you meet people.
You meet people.
And you figure out they're not so bad.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's almost like you got to conquer yourself before people are like, oh yeah, I'm happy to talk to you. You know, not saying that's the issue, but yeah, sorry, go.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, it's funny, to be creative, you need to feel safe, right? It has to be a safe space to really find your flow. And so you turn up to these things and you think, okay, you know, these are my people, and you feel so intimidated and like nothing comes out of your mouth. Oh. And you're like, oh shit, if I was just in my cupboard at home, I'd be fine, you know?
Be fine.
Like,
it sucks.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think I know what you're talking about as well. You're talking about the positive freestyle battles. Maybe is one of the examples.
Yeah, I died.
Big ups to you though. You fucking got up there, and you know that's like everyone has that experience so many times, and it kind of like strips you, but it like puts you back together as well. It's like it's really intense in the moment, but I guess it's almost like a relief afterwards because you've gotten that over and done with.
Yeah, like it had to happen, and it may as well have happened in that beautiful, comfortable space.
Yeah, totally. Because everyone was like, yeah, no, big ups for you for just getting up.
Well, I think the interesting thing about safe spaces is that, you know, fully on that, like, how different do you react, or how different do you convey experiences like when you're with someone that you trust? And I think hip hop's hard because it's such a vulnerable that you can explore such vulnerable topics, but, you know, it's such like a hardcore kind of thing where, you know, we're talking about emotion, but like we're also kind of shielding ourselves from it, and we're not really like discussing it with each other because there's like layers of ego and bravado and things like sort of and braggadocio and all the fun like Italian words in there. But I think
they're the right words.
Exactly. But there's like, you know, certain stories that I wouldn't be comfortable telling, not necessarily in front of a man, but, you know, in terms of freestyling and in terms of, you know, just creating art and like exploring creativity. I think a lot of women would be more encouraged to partake in hip hop and participate in the culture if they felt that, not to speak for all women or all female identifying people, but, you know, I personally feel like it would be a lot easier for people to enter the scene if there were more dedicated spaces for women, or, you know, for womankind to sort of discuss and to be able to share stories in a safe space. And I think sometimes there's a little bit of pressure eased off because you're not trying to, I think subconsciously we retain these traits of trying to please like the opposite gender if you're you know, heterosexual or what have you, but it just feels a little easier to convey what you want to convey when things, you know, that you're safe and you know you have that security blanket of people who you trust, where I feel like personally a lot of women based on trauma and life experiences don't feel comfortable sharing their experiences in front of men, and I guess that's just the reality of it. So, you know, in terms of sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
but,
not at all.
In terms of relating it back to, you know, what we're talking about today and about lyricism and about creating meaning and crafting meaning, I think, you know, having shared spaces and having shared experiences is really important because, you know, ultimately this is something I've talked about before, but the spirit of Ubuntu, which is a Zulu word, which basically means I am because we are. And I think there's a loss of that real like kinship for me, at least personally. I just really want to foster like more connections in Melbourne hip hop. And I think, you know, in terms of lyricism and creating spaces where women especially are encouraged to share experiences and they're encouraged to talk about and express whatever they want in whatever method they want. And they're given tools, multiple tools and diverse tools to do so. And they are following not just like one pattern of success and not trying to emulate one model of success that is predetermined for, you know, females in hip hop culture, and instead give them the tools to craft their own path. And that's the most important thing for me.
I think absolutely. You're right. It really has to be a safe space. And I think that guys get a free pass when going up on stage and they can pretty much say whatever god awful thing that they want to and get away with it and probably being encouraged for it. Whereas like, even I guess maybe part of your living experience is that males might not generally accept your stories in maybe normal conversations anyway, which is unfortunate. You know, you'll be like, yeah, that reminds me of this, you know, and you start on your way. And I imagine, you know.
But sometimes it takes music to make them listen, like to really get them to stop and evaluate, which is important.
You need the stage and the mic. Yeah, absolutely. I think you know, when you get the stage and the mic and the right space, it is all about creative spaces. And yeah, they are safe because you can't be all creative and flowy if there's some kind of danger or threat. That's a different response, right? Like that's a completely different reaction. And yeah, I mean, I don't create rap out of like protecting myself or, you know, like that's just not where it comes from. Yeah.
But I think, you know, when we talk about women and Mariam, I really would love your input here and like on what we've talked about. You know, when we talk about women in hip hop, there's a great deal of anger and a great deal of frustration, and a lot of that is born out of the obstacles that we tend to overcome, and not necessarily
men present, right?
Exactly. And I was going to say, not even, you know, female, male specific like situations, but, you know, there is a different level of circumstances and obstacles and things and considerations and emotional labor that women tend to take on, like kind of as a rule. So I think when we talk about hip hop, there's in terms of my bars and a lot of what I do, there is a lot of anger there because I found that that's the best way for me to express it. But, you know, quite often when a woman expresses that anger, she's called a bitch. And so therein lies the dilemma because, you know, do I want to be perceived as a bitch or do I want to continue to be angry and to allow myself to feel that emotion? Because, you know, if I do so and I do allow that vulnerability, I have to be concerned with how I'm perceived. And that's just not a fun feeling to have. And I think, you know,
well, you're filtering yourself when you're meant to not be filtering yourself. Yeah.
And how come other people can go uncensored, but I can't talk about what I need to talk about? So, Mariam, please, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I feel that. For me, like I'm the same. Like when I write something, it's a diary entry. It comes sometimes with anger. It comes with sadness. It's raw. It's controversial sometimes, and it's so raw that I don't even want to be the one who says it out loud. But it's there, right? And so, like I feel comfortable saying that around my friends and my sisters. But to say that on a stage with a room full of like hip hop men, it's sometimes been too much. Like. Because I am emotional about it and maybe I'm not 100% ready to bring that to an open space. But I do feel comfortable, funnily enough, in a recording studio or in the comfort of my home. So, like, which is probably maybe, you know, I guess there's a different space for personal music maybe. So I'd like more of those spaces where I can be really raw and say something emotional and not feel like I have to then carry the energy of the room. Right, and the response to the room, I would just like to just lay it out, and then maybe that's how I get it out. Because like I have had some really cool creative moments with friends, and then if you asked me to do that in a room, I would just crumble. Like I wouldn't be able to do it yet.
And I don't know. There's a difference between like the jam, like when you're jamming with people, then like, oh, you're doing the thing now. Because with jamming, it's that shared experience, And part of freestyle for me has been like jamming with people that I'm very comfortable with, doing it horribly for so long that I like slowly start to, kind of catch on. Okay.
Catch the wave.
I think, an important question, like whilst we're on the topic, is like what defines a safe space and how maybe like we can go about creating some more, because I think really Vibe Union for me is like the template for a safe space, like the idea of having people from different backgrounds, different experiences, not necessarily on purpose, like we're going to get a Dilly and we're going to get a Mariam and we're going to get,
Nobody asks for a Dilly
like,
first.
Yeah. Dilly never gets picked. No, I'm kidding.
Reminds me of sport back in school. I'm kidding.
Dodgeball. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Sorry,
so good.
I just watched that recently. But,
killer movie. Go on.
So good. Anyway, but for me, Vibe Union really fits the bill of understanding. And I mean, okay, I just watched The Office, but they talk about on the Diversity Day episode about honesty, empathy, respect, and open-mindedness. And honestly, like,
they're kind of the
fully
pillars.
Is that though?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, for me, especially I talked about like just in our private chat the other day, like, some personal things that were going on. And at first I was like, it's really weird. But the guys, because I was like, oh, this is a girl issue, blah, blah, blah. And, honestly, in that chat, they were super encouraging and they were like, you know what, this is a safe space. And it's important that you have people you trust around you, like creatively, not just in music, but in life, and that you can relate to them and they can understand you on a personal level and just respect you, and you can just be. You don't have to, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've ever experienced this, anyone who's watching this, where you're with someone and they make you feel less than, they make you feel inferior, and you don't like that feeling. It is bad. It feels yuck, and you understand that there's the status quo. The status quo is shifted. The equilibrium is out. Like, you can really sense when the power dynamic is out. And my point is that to have a safe space, there needs to be an understanding that everyone is on an equal playing field and that there is no hidden superiority complex. There is no I'm better than, I'm with this group to achieve X. You are going to help me with Y because you have like blah, blah skill set. There's none of that. There is a genuine understanding and a human connection that you have, is how I feel.
Powerful.
Amen.
Amen.
Lay it on him.
Kobe. Shooting long. Getting it. Yeah.
Get Connor on the. I was going to call him Conor. Get Conor on the podcast.
Get Conor on the podcast. Well, that's amazing. Does it almost feel like it's time for a little wrap up, not a wrap? Hey, how are we doing? Good to see. Good to be.
Little guest can't awfully. It's my partner. He's just arrived home from training. I'm doing a podcast.
So am I.
Oh, that's true collaboration. That's cool. It feels like we've explored the good stuff, and we've gotten hopefully where we wanted to get. That was awesome. What a great powwow. I mean, we could do this for days, right? But time is of the essence.
Good. I'm inspired to go write a verse about this full moon and some female power. Yes. Maybe I'll send it off to Casey.
Let's make it a collab.
Yes. Yeah. Get Luna on it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's get Luna. Well, before we go, I will say, I've said this before, that, a lot of female energy, like in terms of the occult and witchcraft and the way that it's thought of, in ancient times, is that women's power comes from the moon, because women are cyclical creatures. We follow the tides. We run in cycles, menstrual, life cycles. And, it's really interesting how, woman reflects the moon, push and pull, like she controls, she changes.
Contracts.
She is, she's the underwoven current is what I'm trying to say. And I think
I used the wrong word. I apologize.
That's okay. I was like, contract. I'm like, okay, go on.
Obviously, the only thing that comes to mind when I think about it. Anyway.
I know we're doing the wrap up, but I just wanted to say, because I know we're talking about feminine energy, that, if for any of the ladies listening out there, definitely just go and hang out under the full moon. You'd be surprised. Like, think of your power and think about remembering who you were before you forgot. I think that's the one thing I'm learning lately, is that, happiness is remembering who you were before you forgot. If that makes sense.
Any magic words from you, Mariam?
Loving it.
I mean, I don't know if I can top that. I guess, yeah, I agree. It's a really good time to be grounded, whether it's the full moon or just in life at the moment. Like, obviously, people have been on pause for a good 6 or 7 months now. So, and it's very easy to get lost in, like, all these ethereal things in the air. You know, there's like, I feel like we've had like 100 tabs open if I had to think about my mind, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's a time to be grounded and to be creative. And, yeah, if it's a feminine energy in the air right now, then let's harness that.
Awesome. Mariam, where can we catch your lyrical feminine hip-hop energy?
My Instagram is Mariam Poet, so Mariam _ poet.
Cool. And that's where you mainly put your mainly where you put your goods?
I've got a SoundCloud, but my link is so long that I can't remember it, so I'll have to send it to you.
Cool.
Maybe you can post it up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Mikado, put it on the salada.
You can find me at mikado.odakim. It's just mikado backwards, so odakim. On Instagram. We love that. We love branding. We love mirrored things. I'm weird. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's where you can find me, and I will have some goodies potentially dropping on Spotify in the near future. So stay tuned for a little project of mine called Woman of the World. She might be coming out. She might not. She might be.
Oh, she's coming out.
She could be. I don't know. Post-COVID, anything's possible. Anything's possible.
That's true. I believe also a mix dropped by you. Maybe this coming week. Talk to us about the mix that's coming out.
Could be. Well, I mean, I've got a little tasty mix dropping for you all this week. It's called Inner Cascades, and really, yeah, the songs on it are very deeply introspective, kind of like we were talking about before, but also like the feeling of like a sonic waterfall falling on top of you, like the idea of being so entrenched in like love or happiness or joy that, you know, it's good to remember this feeling, especially after such an extended period of sadness and of pain. So Inner Cascades is like my return to the fountains of happiness.
I'm about to cry fountains of happiness.
That's beautiful, Dilly Dave.
All right, well, look, VU crew, remember to not only to subscribe to this weekly podcast, but explore all Vibe Union has to offer. Many things we have to offer, mixes. It used to be weekly tracks. We're going to up the polish, and we should be having some more tracks out soon. Get on the YouTube.
2021, baby.
That's it. Fresh year, fresh tracks. Big ups to you all, and take it easy. Bye.
Bye, guys.